Good morning and welcome to Breakfast with Louise Minchin and Dan Walker.
Our headlines for you today: stay at home. That's the message across the UK as England and Scotland go back into lockdown.
Our hospitals are under more pressure from COVID than at any time since the start of the pandemic. With most of the country already under extreme measures, it's clear that we need to do more.
All schools will close for most pupils just a day after the Prime Minister urged parents of primary children to send them back to the classroom.
Boris Johnson says he aims to have the most vulnerable in England vaccinated by the middle of February.
With every jab that goes into our arms, we are tilting the odds against COVID and in favour of the British people.
Give us more support or more companies will collapse and more jobs will go. Unions and business groups call for urgent extra lockdown help from governments in England and Scotland.
Good morning. Elite sport in England can continue, but golf courses, tennis courts and all indoor facilities such as gyms will have to close under the new restrictions.
Good morning. It's another cold day ahead. For many of us, though, it will be dry. However, there are a few wintry showers in the forecast and still some rain in the southeast and the Channel Islands. I'll have all the details in about 10 minutes.
Very good morning to you. It's Tuesday the 5th of January. Our top story for you: England is back in lockdown this morning for at least the next 7 weeks, with people being told once again to stay at home.
The new restrictions, which include the closures of schools and colleges, came into effect at midnight. Scotland has also imposed a lockdown, which means all 4 nations now have similar restrictions.
The Prime Minister's warned the weeks ahead would be the hardest yet. Our political correspondent Jessica Parker has the details.
Since the pandemic began last year, the whole United Kingdom has been engaged in a great national effort to fight COVID.
The stay-at-home message, so familiar from back in March, is again being strongly invoked across the UK. Last night, Boris Johnson said that hospitals were under more pressure now from COVID than at any point in the pandemic. On the new rules for England, he urged people to follow them right away, although they won't become law until the early hours of tomorrow morning.
The government is once again instructing you to stay at home. You may only leave home for limited reasons permitted in law, such as to shop for essentials, to work if you absolutely cannot work from home, to exercise, to seek medical assistance, such as getting a COVID test, or to escape domestic abuse.
In England, you can meet one other person outside, but only to exercise, and any outdoor exercise should be limited to once a day. The extremely clinically vulnerable have been asked to shield again.
Good morning, everybody. Hi.
On how long the lockdown could last, the government's goal is to vaccinate enough people by mid-February to then subsequently reopen schools after the half-term and potentially start moving areas down the tiering system. But this timetable is an aim, not a certainty.
Vaccine must be rolled out at speed. We need this to be mission critical. We were the first country to get the vaccine and we need to be the first country to have the vaccine programme rolled out. So it's that spirit of March, stay at home.
Lockdowns were already in place in Wales and Northern Ireland. One's coming into force across mainland Scotland today. With schools closed to most children, they'll have to learn remotely.
It would have been far better if we'd approached in England the management of schools opening and closing in the way that Scotland has done, where there's been none of this. Will they, won't they? Will they listen to the evidence? When will schools be closed? Everyone knew that schools were going to be closed. But this constant brinkmanship of how long do you have to go is terrible. It's terrible for teachers, it's terrible for parents, and it's not that nice for children either.
While there is new hope because of the vaccine, the weeks ahead spell a new test of endurance as well. It may be a familiar, more simple message, but it's not necessarily one that's easy to hear. Jessica Parker, BBC News.
Let's go live to Westminster now and speak to our political correspondent Nick Eardley, who is outside number 10. Morning to you, Nick. Thanks for being with us this morning. I think the announcement last night will have come as a surprise to many of our viewers, to millions of people all across the UK. Give us an idea, if you can, of what caused that sudden change.
Morning, Dan. I mean, I think we got a hint from the Prime Minister at the weekend that there were more restrictions coming in England. Clearly things moved really quickly yesterday though, because it was only yesterday morning we were talking about the government saying schools were safe and that people should still go to school, and the Prime Minister saying any new restrictions would be announced, as he put it, in due course. A couple of things happened yesterday. Firstly, in there on a conference call, Boris Johnson and all the leaders from across the UK were told by the chief medical officers that there was a real risk that if things didn't change, the NHS could be overwhelmed. That's why the COVID alert level went up to its highest level yesterday, to 5. Boris Johnson also got some new figures yesterday, saying that in one day at the end of December, 80,000 people across the UK had tested positive for coronavirus. But look, there was huge political pressure as well. Throughout the day yesterday, starting on breakfast, there were a lot of people, Tory grandees, Labour politicians, First Ministers across the UK like Nicola Sturgeon, saying we really need to act now. This is critical and something needs to change. And yesterday afternoon, Boris Johnson agreed, and that's why England is back in this really severe lockdown.
Nick, thank you very much for that. And throughout the day today, we'll be speaking to, we've got all sorts of guests lined up, haven't we?
Yep.
Politicians, experts, medics. We'd love to hear from you as well. But we'll be speaking to Sir Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. We've got Michael Gove here at 7:30. Nicola Sturgeon's going to be here at 8:30. And also speaking to the leader of the Labour Party, Sir Keir Starmer. I think he's 7:15 this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there are so many changes, so we'll try and keep you right up to date with what exactly has changed overnight and kind of guide you and us through it as well. So that's reaction from Westminster we just heard from Nick. But how do people across England feel about once again being told to stay at home? John McManus has been finding out.
Monday night in York, a place previously in Tier 3, but where cases of the virus are rising as winter tightens its grip. As the Prime Minister announced a further English lockdown on TV, the frustration on the face of this gym owner was easy to see.
This news has broken me a little bit. I like to think I'm a strong, resilient person. I pride myself on that. But I'm going home now wondering what are the things I can do to make sure my bills are paid.
It's a double blow for Frankie. As a self-employed businesswoman, she's not eligible for the furlough scheme. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Devon has one of the lowest rates of infection in England, but nowhere in the county can escape lockdown.
I think the whole country needs to be treated the same, really. It's probably just easier for the whole country to go into lockdown and then see the whole rates decline, and then we can start again after that.
I had it back in March, and when I had it, obviously getting it down here was very rare, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. So I think whatever it takes to protect who we need to protect, it's worth it.
Just a few days ago, the people of Hull were hoping they might move down a tier. Those hopes now dashed. And university students here and across the country have also been told they won't be returning to campus just yet.
Gutted. So I'm a uni student, so sort of feels a little bit let down. Boris didn't talk about universities. But yeah, just gutted to us. It sort of feels like we've not gone anywhere in 10 months.
Work now, obviously, well, we're key workers, obviously, we can still work and things like that, but we both live on our own, and obviously we can't see our family and friends. It is a bit lonely, especially when we live on our own, innit?
Across England, the outlook is challenging, with only the vaccine rollout offering a glimmer of hope. John McManus, BBC News.
Police have arrested a Scottish MP after she apologised for using public transport while infected with coronavirus. Margaret Ferrier has been charged with culpable and reckless conduct for travelling from Glasgow to London in September while awaiting the results of a COVID test and then making the return train journey having tested positive. She was suspended by the SNP at Westminster but has refused to resign from Parliament.
Donald Trump and Joe Biden have both been campaigning in the US state of Georgia. This is before today's crucial vote for 2 Senate seats.
More than 3 million people have already cast ballots, nearly 40% of the state's registered voters. If the Democrats win, they will control all of Congress and the White House. Our Washington correspondent, Nomia Iqbal, reports.
The men standing with Joe Biden might just be his most important friends right now. Democrats Pastor Raphael Warnock and investigative journalist Jon Ossoff are running for Georgia's 2 Senate seats. If they win, the president-elect's party will control the Senate.
One state can chart the course, not just for the next 4 years, but for the next generation.
For people in Georgia, this means campaigning has never stopped.
The place that we demand better is at the ballot box.
The energy here in Georgia is something I've never seen before.
Yes, we can do it. Yes, we can.
All right now.
If John Ossoff wins, he'll be the youngest senator, a title that once belonged to Joe Biden.
You guys,
The pressure is on Georgia's Republicans too. Kelly Lafler here, meeting voters.
and we're in the battle for the country, so.
Fellow candidate David Perdue has had to quarantine for a few days.
Make sure that you get your friends and family out. This is about turnout. We're going to win if we turn out.
The early voter turnout in Georgia has been huge, and that's because this state knows that their candidates will decide just how powerful Joe Biden's presidency will be.
Her pro-business, pro-conservative values have really trickled down to our city. As mayor, what I'm telling people is go out there and vote.
Georgia is the final battle for President Trump. He still wrongly believes the election was rigged.
There's no way we lost Georgia. There's no way. That was a rigged election.
Some Republicans worry he could put off voters, giving an advantage to Joe Biden. Nomia Iqbal, BBC News, Georgia.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.